Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the program, The Weekly Matters, and I am your host, Ahmedkadar. Today we are discussing the issue of media and its role, particularly in the Muslim world and more so in the East Africa community and Kenya, to be specific. How are the Muslims covered by the media? Is it stereotype, full of stereotype, negative reportage, or is it just out of ignorance, and sort of stereotyping the Muslim community? Today we are going to diverge into that, and my guest is Omar Kalinge, the author of a book called Media Stereotypes of Islam and Muslims, A Global Perspective. The author of this book called Media Stereotypes of Islam and Muslims, A Global Perspective. It was written by our guest, Omar Kalinge. He's an engineer and a researcher and author too. So we're going to put that into perspective. And also today we are hosting Professor Elmi, Chancellor of Rongo University. He's a long time, Professor M.Y. Elmi, Mohammed Yusuf Elmi, that is. And he's a professor, also the Chancellor of Rongo University. As you can see today, we have big guys on the show, and it's going to be an interesting one. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Omar, if I start with you, before we even go into the issue of media and how it covers the Muslim community, what made you write this book?
I have been in the media for a while. The time I spent as columnist with the Nation Media Group, the Daily Monitor of Uganda, for 7 uninterrupted years.
For how many years?
7 uninterrupted years. Kept me in contact with the media very, very, very greatly. But also as a Muslim living in a largely Muslim minority environment with no media house of their own at the time. We did suffer a lot of misconceptions, and we thought that maybe at one point we shall talk back, all right? It has been a long time coming, but yes, we thought instead of complaining how they cover you, do something. And I also noticed that many of our people who did not get grounding in Islamic education at the workplace, they're bombarded with a lot of questions, and they tease them, you terrorists, and you're women abusers, and you don't let your women work, you know, why do you girls go to school if you don't go to work? So they don't know how to answer back. Muslims don't know human rights, and they cannot answer back. So I said, well, let me help those people who want not to fight but give a response, but also the non-Muslim who has been fed on whatever they get on TV and radio. Because when you ask people, have you had any trouble with a Muslim in your life? They say, no, Muslims are good people. At the workplace, in schools, But where is the bad guy? The bad Muslim is on TV, is on radio. Nobody has touched a bad Muslim.
Yes.
And they praise us. Muslims are good people. They are honest people. They are friendly, and they keep their word. But where is the bad guy? He's on TV.
He's on TV.
So
you wonder.
You wonder what this caricature.
Yes, I can see. Now, Prof, if I bring you to the discussion, we know that we live in a country with a liberal media, at least in Kenya, compared to the parts of the region. But having said that, still there are people who have issue with the way the media covers, as Omar said, the Muslim community and minorities. You come from a region where the media is not favorable, as many will say, in terms of its coverage, especially in northern Kenya and the coast region. What informs the Kenyan media particularly to be stereotyping on Muslims, in your own view?
Thank you, Ahmedkadar. First, as you correctly say, the media particularly in northeastern provinces, until recent time has been absent. So what we have been relying on, even in the national TV, in many parts of northeastern, is not there. There's no KTN, except with few fellows who have
Free to air these digital things like
yes.
Zuku and those kind of stuff.
TV and all these things. Other than that, there is no. It's not like in Nairobi where you have a choice of seeing NTV, KTN, and all. So most of the things that are reported are actually not seen by the people. The other thing is that what is always reported is negative things, that tribal clashes, things like terrorism, and most of the report directs at collective punishment.
Collective punishment.
Yes, there is a fellow who has done something, and instead of using the machinery to catch up that fellow, then it is generalized that the Somalis from northeastern. You can remember the famous saying of one of the ministers in the parliament that terrorism has its tail in Mogadishu and its head in Isuli. So it means that this is
anyone who is in Isuli.
Anybody who is in between the tail and the head is actually a terrorist.
Was that how
that was in parliament?
When you hear such a thing, how do you feel and how do you think the community or the people who are being referred to such will react? And what is the role of the media in all that? You
see, the role of media,
yes.
First, the major problem here is that there are very few Muslims in the media. And those who are in the media are not representing effectively. Most of these media houses belong to people and they want to make money. What makes money is not good news. And like they say, if a man bites a dog, that is the news. If the dog bites a man, it's no news. So in essence, and you see most of the people in northeastern particularly, and even in the coast, are illiterate. The illiteracy rate is very, very high. So consequently, they are not familiar or they don't know their rights. Two, their leaders do not represent them well. And you see, the legal system, here, if you commit something that is not right, then there is a legal process that you can be able to pursue.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for the people of Northeastern, even the legal process is fractured because...
Now, Prof, if I ask, you said nothing positive is reported about Northern Kenya.
Very few.
And the coast?
Very few positive, yes.
Why do you think the media dwells on the negative side and will hardly show anything positive about the region you have just described?
I am saying this is largely, general in the world, bad news sells. Bad news. If there is a car crash, it will hit if there was a bus that overturned. But if somebody did something very excellent, that is innovative, it's never reported.
But it's reported in other sections of the society. And what I'm asking, why not in that side?
It's because first, the people who are reporting are not familiar with the systems that they are actually reporting on. So they just say there were attacks, 2 teachers were killed, something like this happened, and it is blown largely out of proportion. And you can remember the exodus of the teachers yes. So it actually became them and us. You understand? Many teachers.
And that's you say is the creation of the media?
Yes. That is the creation of the media because it's not teachers die of many things, including malaria, and actually their number may be much larger than, or the number of teachers who are killed by HIV are largely larger than those who are killed by terrorists. But you cannot evict an entire school or the whole system just because something like has happened. And you see, it is not the responsibility of the people to bring security. That is the government's responsibility.
Okay. Now, Omar, Prof said that sometimes the media largely dwells on the negative side of the Muslim community because there are no Muslims in the media or there are very few. Is it must even for a Muslim to be in the media, for the media to play its role?
Well, it shouldn't be, but the media survives in society. I tell you about Uganda. In Uganda, the Muslim was supposed to be a butcher, a driver, perhaps a restaurant owner. Never an engineer, never a doctor, never a teacher. So the media feeds on these historical stereotypes and is really very afraid to be wrong in 2018. I don't know whether you...
Yes, I get you.
They don't want to see a Muslim who achieved, because Muslims are not supposed to achieve. I tell you a story of auditions in Uganda, or the media newsreaders. If a sister in hijab comes for audition, for the English bulletin, they always fail, even when they speak better English than. Why? They do not want the hijab to be associated with elitism, the English newsreader, and they're all pushed into the Luganda news reading, the local language. It's subtle but strong.
Is it still the same now?
It is the same.
Okay, the good
all
thing,
the Muslim sisters in hijab are pushed to the Luganda.
The good thing in our country, as much as we are talking about media stereotypes and all these things, at least we are not that bad or behind.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yes.
So they fear to be wrong in 2018. There shouldn't be something very good coming out of the Muslim community. If a Muslim did a wonderful thing, an act of passion, because they are supposed to be killing people. So this story of a Muslim who saved a Christian or a non-Muslim finds this very hard to pass via the barrier, because it will make them look wrong. This is not to say that Muslims don't have a responsibility, because we are the best community evolved from mankind, but also the media houses, the Muslim media houses have a responsibility to bring the good stories. I think Horizon and others should be now looking for those positive stories about Muslims and give them more space.
You're talking about...
Because somebody is doing the bad job for us anyway.
Yes.
So why don't you, as a real organized campaign, to bring the positive of this community on these screens, maybe it would help. Maybe it would help.
Okay, you have talked about a teacher, someone who saved non-Muslims. It happened in this country. I don't know, about 2 years ago, a teacher from northern Kenya who was traveling on a bus saved fellow Kenyans who happened to be non-Muslims. And it was a news item, that one, for at least it came to the coverage. But it's not, the way it should have been. Many will say, I'm sure including you. And even after that, so many things happen, so many same things happen, but the region still continues to be covered negatively.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, that is a big, big story that a Muslim saved a Christian. Should that be a very big story? Are they shocked that a Muslim saved Christians? They shouldn't be shocked. This is our tradition. This is what I'm saying. It could pass, but the way they present it is like such a miracle happened. A Muslim saved some Christians. Should that surprise you? Should it be such a big issue? That's where the stereotypes come in. Because you are known for destroying life, and here you are, one unique Muslim man. And
it's as if, it's unusual.
Exactly. Yes. But our traditions is to save life.
Additional
Yes.
Sometimes it's always easy to blame the other side. Muslims have also contributed to this problem largely. Islam, and I think maybe Mr. Omar maybe is more familiar in Islam, will correct me wrong. The Quran says, when it is finished, I have perfected this religion. Meaning that really Islam is not only right, but perfect. And it's supposed to be a religion of role models. So today you see anybody who is involved in bad things, including terrorism, are Muslims. Are they really the people who are supposed to be representing Islam?
Now the question comes in that case, Professor.
Yes.
Is the media has a role to identify even the ones who are doing badly, who are Muslim. No one said a Muslim is perfect, yeah? But the question is, how do you separate the individual from Islam? We can all be right, we can all be wrong.
Yes.
But if I do something wrong, it doesn't mean that Professor Elmi and Omar should pay for my wrongs. That is our topic of discussion.
Yes.
Yes. There are people. So do they do it? If, for example, someone is doing terrorism and they have a mission to achieve, which is wrong in Islam, and the person happened to be a Muslim, will he be covered by the media the same way will be covered by a non-Muslim who does, terrorism-related activities? Will the coverage be the same?
We
are going for a short break. We are going for a short break, but this is a very important topic, and I would like to remind our viewers that we are also live on our Facebook page, that is Horizon TV Kenya, Twitter at Horizon TV, myself at Ahmedkadar. Will come back and keep it there.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Welcome back to the show, The Weekly Matters, and I'm your host, Ahmedkadar, as usual. If you have just joined us, we have been discussing the role of media and how the Muslim community is portrayed, especially in the East African community and specifically in Kenya. And with me in the studio is Omar Kalinge, the author of this book called Media Stereotypes of Islam and Muslims, A Global Perspective. It's also available locally. You can have a copy if you feel like having one, and I think you should have one because it gives a very interesting observation on how the media and the Muslim relates. A very important book to read. And Professor Elmi, the Chancellor of Rongo University, a very deep man rather. And Prof, before we went for break, we have been talking, you have said that also the Muslim played a role in the way they are covered. Can you put more emphasis on that?
Because you see, all these Muslims were involved in political liberation and using Islam as a method to acquire their political objectives. There are many people who have been involved in struggle. The NRA has been involved and they have done many terrible things in wherever. But you see, this was associated with politics and themselves. Even in our own setup, the Mau Maus, we fought for our independence without using religion or any other that as a political objective. But the unfortunate thing is that these Muslims who are fighting for whatever they think is their right are using Islam and using a terrible way. You are using the name of Islam in a terrible way. Because you see, Islam is a voluntary religion. For you to become a Muslim, it's a choice. You can refuse or you can, depending on what you want. And that is why, you see, God has a strong ability. And whatever He wants, it's always done.
Now, Prof.
Just let me finish this. In the Quran, it says, kun fayakun, be and it becomes. Why did God choose to have Muslim in this number? Because I think largely so that they become good role models.
Now, in that context, and before I come to Omar, whose role is it? We know there are Muslims who misuse Islam for their end, for their political end or whatever. But has become an issue for media stories. They don't remove any political motivation from acts of terrorism. Like you have said, these terrorists may have a political ambition, but they happen to be Muslims. So are the rest of the Muslims supposed to suffer because of few Muslims? And how the media portrays that matters. And that is a topic of discussion. So how do we separate the two? So Omar, you're an expert in this field. You have written about it. Why do media people, or the media generally, fail to separate their stories, to remove any political motivation from act of terrorism? And why do they solely rely on religion and portray any other person who happen to be that religion negatively, the way the people who are doing bad things are portrayed?
That's a difficult question, but also easy if you understand that Islam is not just a religion. It's a way of life, a complete one. So in some aspects, they are right that Islam is a complete culture. It's a complete way of life. So they cannot separate us. We also don't separate religion from politics. We're not secular. Islam is deen wa dawla, you know. So you have to see that context as well. So don't blame them too much.
What I meant
because
is,
with us,
what I meant is,
they know Islam
yes,
is your family,
yes,
is your work,
yes,
is your business,
yes,
is your mosque,
yes,
is your.
yes.
So really, from that angle,
Yeah,
you don't blame them. From the other side, journalists are supposed to be fair, to report fairly, and not discriminate. But of course, they follow an agenda. There are the three M's of power: muscle, money, and mind. So they capture muscle. Colonel he knows about muscle. Core of the army, of the military. They captured that. They captured the money. The banking system is theirs. What was left was the mind. Mind could mean knowledge, could mean education, could mean. But also, how do you approach the mind? You approach the mind through the media largely. We are glued on TV, we are glued on
social media.
So that third M is what makes the world go round. So the capitalists and the muscle man must capture the media to create an impression that there is an enemy to fight, so they can deploy the muscle, and the money should go to fighting that enemy. It's self-fulfilling. So there's a lot of unfairness involved, but they're pursuing a capitalist agenda to service the muscle and therefore make the money as well. So they're not entirely innocent. They're doing their job. We are not entirely innocent. We also do terrible things in the name of Islam. Our job is to tell them, separate, really appeal. Why does the IRA in Northern Ireland, why did they have the luxury of being separated as Catholics and nationalists and not us? Do it for us for a while. But I insist it's the responsibility of the Muslim media house to do this. If you cow down and also start picking stories from AFP and Reuters, and you really regurgitate them without thinking, then you're to blame. The call to the Muslim media is start telling your own story. Somebody will listen. Why are you so lazy to start picking any story with the same terminologies? First it was religious fundamentalists.
Yes.
Then some
You
extremists.
know, yes, Islamists.
Then some Islamists.
Yes.
Why do you pick these? Why are you copycat?
Yes.
Get your own terms.
Yes.
You know that we at Horizon, this is how we describe this situation. It will become household. Our universities, the faculties of journalism must start working on this. We are training thousands of journalists who are trained to use the same terminologies that put us down, and still they could even have done better. So this is my argument all through. We have our responsibilities, and maybe we're not taking it seriously. We are busy complaining and crying and whining. Nobody's going to listen to you cry.
Now, if we take a little bit, break from the issue of media and Islam and go to other sectors and how the media portrays. Prof, for example, the health sector in northern Kenya and in some part of the coast, which largely inform our viewers. Do you think it gets the right coverage? Do you think diseases monitoring, evaluations, public, awareness creation, do they get covered? Are people informed through the media the right things to be done? For example, northern Kenya has, in Mandera, for instance, it had the highest rate of maternal rate. Do you think maternal rate? Do you think those things should be captured more, or are they even captured?
Ahmedkadar, let me tell you.
Yes.
Northeastern, the indicators of health are the worst in this nation. For example, maternal mortality in Mandera, as been reported recently, is 3,200 per every 100,000 live births.
That's too much.
That is not only too much, but it is terrible. Unacceptable. It can only happen in war zone. Wajir, which is the second county with the highest mortality, is about 1,200. Garissa has about 1,000. The Millennium Development Goals normally accepted is 120 per every 100,000 live births. So you can imagine 120, and that was not even achieved. There is massive regional disparity. For example, in Central Province, the maternal mortality is less than 200. And you see, the health system infrastructure is so depressive for people of Northeastern that we are actually living in two different worlds. For example, in Central Province, the diseases that they are worrying about is lifestyle diseases, diabetes, hypertension, heart diseases. What is killing people in Northeastern is malaria, diarrhea, diseases that are associated with
Now,
poor
talking of
hygiene.
that, if I just wanted to enhance your point, something small like that, maybe a cholera, and I'm not trying to underestimate the impact of cholera, happens somewhere, maybe let's say in central Kenya. It's everywhere in the news. And an epidemic like, I don't know how to pronounce this word. You remember what happened in Mandera, this where people bend, that kind, what is it called?
Dengue fever.
Yeah, dengue fever.
Fever.
Dengue fever. Such kind of things happen. And it takes months after, for it to be covered. So how do you see that kind of coverage again?
You see, first news is related with the development.
Yes.
A journalist is a man who wants to live in comfort. So for him to be able to function, first there must be prerequisite developmental structures. For example, there must be electricity. Then somewhere he can charge his phone and report. The roads must be good enough to take the crew to capture this story. So this is an area that lacks all infrastructural development. There's no electricity, there's no proper water, there are no roads. So for example, national TV like KBC to go to Northeastern, it requires immense effort to go and capture that story. For KTN to do that, it requires a lot of investment. They go to put their crew into an aircraft and go there. So you see, the story they're going to report must be selling.
But almost 60 years after independence, why is it still
That's what I'm saying. Sometimes it's not the media to blame. It is the government structure. These people in Northeastern have been marginalized largely from time immemorial. This is because the first colonialism started with the arrival of the white man. When he came, he realized these people were already Muslims. So the white man brought here two things: Christianity and to get resources. So he was to convert. So these people were lacking the two things. They're already Muslims, and they had little resources, as far as in the context of the white man. Yes, because you see, there were no forests. There were many things that were lacking, and that's why the railway does not pass anywhere near, other than the coast, which is an accidental, because they are only close to the port. So this is a historical problem, but some of the problems actually lie with us. Because it's all the time we're only saying we are doing this, we don't bring the right leaders to be able to combat and put the government into action. Yes, we select our leaders based on very silly things like tribalism and my clan and my this. So you are competing with the lions and you are taking to the parliament squirrels. How do you expect them to fight?
Yes.
It doesn't work. So some of the problems actually is us. The other thing is that you see, we must develop we must make a positive impact in education. For you to report them, you must be a journalist. And you must have the capacity to read and write. So if the journalist is coming from Muranga or Kiambu or, coming from Kisi, I mean, why would he go to Northeastern in a hardship where the temperature is...
I agree.
Yeah.
Now, Umar, you've talked about the issue of Muslim media also being copycats. And right now, to be honest, there's a Muslim media presence. We have Horizon TV, we have Iqra FM, and we have many other stations or TV stations or radios which are owned by Muslim people, personalities. Yet we are still complaining. Are the Muslim media failing the people they're supposed to represent?
Well, you can't pass this judgment. It's not such a long time ago that the Muslims really grew their own media. In Uganda, for example, up to maybe 8 years ago, we had only 30 minutes on the national TV on Friday, Juma special. Today we can program 24 hours a day, but that is after a long struggle. Kenya as well, I was here as a young man, and it wasn't so rosy, but the efforts are there. He says, a journalist, you have to train, you have to invest in education. What we did in Uganda is to invest heavily in persuading our young men and women to join journalism. The mass communication class became larger and larger every year, until today they cannot have this story of Siraj steals pig, because Siraj is a very common Muslim name. Think of one Muslim common name here.
Yes. Let's say Ahmed.
Ahmed steals pig, and this Fatma stole waragi. Waragi means this brew, changa.
Yeah, I know waragi. Yes, you know waragi.
And there was no one to fight back. Today they cannot. Why? The media houses are now a bit populated by us. They get a bit of share. I was at the University of Nairobi to deliver their free the donation, and I got a chance to walk into the head of Mascom's office. And as an observant person, I was eager to look at the pigeonhole.
Yes.
The pigeonholes, and there's Professor this and Doctor this and this and Mr. this and Madam. I didn't see one Muslim name, perhaps maybe a name that is, maybe there could be a Muslim who does not use the normal Muslim names we know. Then I knew there was trouble. If in a full department, you count 14 pigeonholes and not even one Muslim strikes you, you know you have a problem. You see that? So this is where our universities, Ummah University and Rafa, and they should really consciously invest in the media, because that's the third aim of power.
Okay.
All right. So that's actually the
this is a very interesting discussion. We are going back for a short break, but before we go for a break, I would like to remind our viewers, as usual, we are live also on our social media platform, that is Horizon TV, Facebook, that is Horizon TV, Twitter at Horizon, myself at Ahmedkadar. We are finalizing our second segment, and we'll be back for our third and final segment. And as usual, it's going to be more interesting. Keep it there.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Welcome back to the program, the Weekly Matters Show, and today we are discussing the issue of media and how the Muslims are portrayed locally, internationally, and all over. Before we went for break, Umar, there is this question. There was a documentary done in the US in the UK called "It Shouldn't Happen to a Muslim." You know, the kind of things, Islamophobia does when the media, when, people are misinformed about Islam and Muslim. We have seen the issue of the veil, for example, in France, and we have seen the cartoons of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how they were done globally, and the kind of outrage it has elicited. And do you think the secular media, or the media in general, is going too far in trying to provoke Muslims generally across the world?
Well, at the end of the day, it's about global power. It's global power. I think Muslims constitute a real threat to the hegemony of the dominant powers today. The demographic itself, the ideology itself. So really, you cannot be innocent as a Muslim. You are a threat. If you don't think you're a threat, then you lose the point, you lose the plot. Behave fully aware that everybody thinks you are a threat to them. So you divide ways, you become more careful, you get smarter, you become the best in whatever you do, you know that kind of, so that they don't get any excuse. But don't think they will leave you alone. I tell you about my country. In Uganda, we have the bogey of Idi Amin. Now, to put you down, they say you are Idi Amin's man. Because Idi Amin, the crime he committed was to make me Omar, an engineer, when I was supposed to be a butcher at the best. The best I would be a driver in a big corporation.
But there are others who will say that he was a tyrant, a dictator,
exactly,
and he killed people and throwing people into the...
This is 1979.
In River Nile.
This is 1971.
There was that kind of argument, yes.
This is 1971 to 79.
Yes.
How many democracies were there at the time? So let's not go there. The point is, they put you down because of Amin, whom they say because he was a Muslim, because we don't have the luxury to do anything except as a Muslim. Okay? You qadr whatever you do in the market, where when they see you cut, whatever you do is not.
Now that brings me as you go ahead, that brings me to the question of, because it's good that I bring down this, the question of Muslim personalities, sports persons, sport people, academician. Do they get fair coverage compared to their peers who are not Muslims? Because you said you were supposed to be a butcher or a driver, but he made you, an Umar.
Yes.
And the media will, and as you said previously, that for example in Uganda, Muslim ladies or women are, put into the local programming, and not the prime time.
The elite, because they relate English
to elitism.
Yeah.
Now the question I'm asking is, put that into context. Do you think Muslim personalities, sports people, are they stereotyped, or do they get the same coverage that any other person who's not Muslim will get?
Well, many things are changing, by the way, yes. And I think I saw the Salah craze, Mohammed Salah.
Yes.
Many things are changing, and still it boils down to who constitutes the media, the newsroom, all right? But also, sports, I think, has made many barriers break. The stereotypes about black people, stereotypes about Muslims, exactly.
They're black.
They're black. Some are black, some are not. So many things are happening, and we want to use this opportunity when the iron is still hot to really blow up these things. And you bring Salah again and again and again, and you bring this to praying after match, and that's your job. It's not the other media's job. Don't ask them what they don't have. They are not fair. You have fairness embedded in your religion. Play fair. Don't people give only what they have. They are not just. They can't give you justice. Do your part. Our point of departure is that the Muslims, the Muslims complain too much.
And do less.
And do less. Do your thing, do your stuff, and do it hard, and do it smart.
Yeah,
yes, Prof.
I think I would like to support the engineer here on this. Most of the time we always look at the other side. You, How many fingers are looking at you?
Yes, one.
You are looking, pointing.
Oh, yeah,
Muslims.
4 are looking at you.
For example, a lot of things first have improved. In Wajir today, we have how many? I think about 5 or so radio stations.
Yes. Yeah.
And anybody who feels, something wrong is done to him will rush to community. These are things that have not been there before. So we have television, yes, Horizon. How many people know Horizon?
Yes.
You must develop. This world is about competition, and competition is for the best. So instead of talking about what other people do to you, you should be able to see what is it that you can do to improve yourself. Look at Citizen TV. Citizen TV was a mediocre in 5 years, less than 5 years ago. Today it is one of the most watched.
Yeah, it's the top TV in the country.
Yes. This is because they have invested a lot of time and money. They have brought in good programs. They have brought in good producers. They have brought in good things. So the Muslims must always stop talking about stereotypes and all these things. You bring yourself to the best and the world will recognize you.
Good. Now,
additionally,
yes,
you must do things that are good for yourself and for your religion. Because if Mo Farah is a Muslim, by running and breaking the world record, he has brought in good things for himself, and he brought good things for the Muslim community and his country. This guy who is a football player, the Egyptian,
Mo Salah. Yes.
Is among the very few people who actually
there's even a song saying if Mo Salah is a Muslim,
I will be a Muslim. Yes. So this is
he played in the studio. In the stadium.
The point I'm laboring to say is let's stop complaining.
Let's be example.
Let us not only be example, but do our things well. For example, Horizon has an extremely strong duty to compete with KTN and any other media houses. You understand? So that tomorrow, for people to switch into KTN, they see there is value to it. So you must bring the best journalist here, or you guys must be the best journalist. You must invest a lot of money. You must do a lot of things. So Muslims must work hard. And they're already doing that. In this country, you can see Muslims have huge economy. If they can only use those resources to better Islam and better themselves, then things will be completely different.
Prof, switching gears.
Yes.
I want to take you back locally.
Yes.
On the issue of the media still. And you know very well that corruption is very endemic in this country. And it's something the president is fighting. And he has fought and he has promised to fight it to the end. And I think it's also our responsibility and everyone's responsibility to support the president in ensuring that corruption comes to an end, if we can, or either reduced. Now, we have something called devolution. Like where you come from, people have always complained of marginalization. Now, is it fair to say they are marginalizing themselves because the kind of amount of money that went to northern Kenya vis-a-vis what is seen on the ground is different. But yet, when the media is talking about corruption, it hardly covers that region. What will you say about that?
Qadar, you see, what has happened...
Is that corruption less than the corruption happening in other places?
Corruption is an endemic in this country.
Yes.
The president is fighting tooth and nail. All of us must work. And some of these things are societal issues. We must hate corruption. Because corruption is responsible for the maternal mortality we are talking about. Corruption is responsible for the schools that have poor education. Poor educational infrastructure. Corruption is something that all of us must fight. And it must begin with who? With the individual.
Yes.
Now you see...
But the media is not giving attention to that part of the country where it's maybe probably for every 10 bob, 9 shillings is eaten.
Yes.
That's my point. The question.
That is the point. You see, when some Lusaka, is he called Lusaka, the governor of
who is now the Speaker of the Senate?
Yes. Bought wheelbarrows.
For 100,000.
For 170,000, the media picked it.
Yes.
Who are these fellows in the media? These are the lawyers in the journalists who are journalists.
Yes.
These guys are stealing worse than Lusaka.
Yes, but no one is.
But no one is doing it.
Yes.
Who is this fellow who's going to invest his time to look at how much a wheelbarrow costs in Wajir? Probably it could cost 3-4 times.
Yes.
Wajir or any other part in Northeastern is actually, there is devolved corruption. And not only corruption, not only devolved, but big time. Because even social values have changed. You'll find somebody who has been a pauper the other day. Today he is multi-billionaire or a millionaire. And then you ask yourself, you ask the society, how did this guy get this kind of money? You say, this guy, these days, man, you have got to work very hard. I mean, you don't have to work very hard. You got to work smart.
Yes.
And that smartness is actually theft.
Yes.
And the society glorifies. These are the fellows who go to parliament and lead you. How is he going to fight corruption? A person who is a direct beneficiary of corruption. You understand? So this requires societal attitude. We must help the president, because it is, in fact, if there is no corruption in this, or rather, it is limited. You know, corruption it was everywhere. It was in America, it was in Britain, it was in all of this developed world. But they fought, because corruption, the brother of corruption is impunity. Once Ahmedkadar steals something, this camera, and he goes away with it and nobody catches him, then we will not see any of them tomorrow. Because everyone, you see Khadr stole. And the guy he has built a house in Sili. What will prevent from Obura or anybody else stealing 2 or 3 cameras? So we must fight corruption and impunity in totality. And then in that case, then we will not need any money from donors or from any other fellow. Actually, Kenya is supposed to be giving money to Rwanda and Burundi and even Uganda. The money we have is immense.
Yes.
You understand? So the problem is that wealth, somebody was reporting the other day that the money is started in foreign banks, trillions of dollars.
So the question is the media failing us?
Not the media. Media is, we said corruption. I mean, generally, media, I told you, follows development. The media man, that's why we have Horizon here. Why don't you have Horizon in Wajir? It's because the necessary infrastructure.
But sometimes it's also maybe the way we think things should be, when necessarily not the same.
So what I'm saying is it is a developmental issue.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Omar, it is the duty of journalists to inform and educate. But in most cases, they spread misinformation and prejudice, especially when it comes to Islam, and create Islamophobia. What is the best way to stop that?
Through education. Through education. Even if you educate the journalists on what Islam really stands for, and the journalists may refuse for their own reasons, but their audience, once well informed, will reject the story, we refuse the narrative. They'll ask the right questions. But the media fraternity is ignorant, mixed with some hate, historical, you know. There is push and pull factors, there's the market forces and stuff like that. So really, the only way is to educate. And when we invested in writing this book, it was supposed to be a toolkit to the Muslim to be able to answer back to these stereotypes they push against us, but for the non-Muslim to understand the correct position of Islam on most of these stereotypes.
Now, talking of...
So it's kind of toolkit. For me, educating is half job done.
Okay, sorry for interjecting you because we don't have time, and the producer is saying we should conclude. But before we go, you said we should reject some narratives, which are not wrong. Exactly. Recently, you know, social media has given a big platform that even sometimes shut down the mainstream media.
Exactly.
Recently, when Kenya was playing Ethiopia at Kasarani about 2 weeks ago, one of the local media, mainstream media, Twitter handle, tweeted a photo of some Muslim Ethiopians who are praying before the game, and because Ethiopia lost the game, that media house said that Ethiopia needs more than Allah's intervention to win the game. Now that tweet caused uproar on social media. Muslims saying, no, you are misinterpreting Islam. These guys were praying like we pray 5 times in a day, and it happened to be Asr, and there was a game playing. So stop misusing, and that media house was forced to delete that tweet. Do you think we should, how well should we use as Muslims social media, and then also give us your parting shot, because we are closing the whole discussion, and you have 1 minute for all that.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's about being aggressive, positively aggressive.
Yes.
If somebody attacks you and wrongfully, attack back like they attacked that Twitter.
Yes.
But also, the idea really should be to present the best of yourself. Okay, should be the idea. Don't expect people to carry your load, Kader. Nobody. It's yours. The buck stops with you. I think that's the bottom line.
Okay, Prof,
That's
we
the
have
bottom line.
we have less than a minute.
Yeah.
Give us your parting shot, and how should we improve media coverage, especially in minorities and people who have been marginalized for long, when it comes to media coverage? We have 1 minute, less than a
only
minute.
3 things.
Yes.
One,
Yes.
the Muslims first must invest in education, must invest in communication extensively, so that the Muslim media can be able. You can imagine if those fellows don't write anything in the Twitter, nobody would have ever listened to them. The second thing is that Muslims must become role model of goodness. You can imagine if there are some things that people expect from you. In Islam, God says in the Quran that Muhammad is the perfect. He has been praised. So if somebody writes, what if a Christian wrote the meaning cartoon about Jesus Christ, what will be the reaction? Nothing. So sometimes Muslims are triggered into doing things that are not right because people expect their mentality.
Okay, we should portray the best of ourselves, invest in education, invest in media, and improve how we relate with others. Basically, that is what we are getting from Professor M.Y. Elmi and my brother Omar Daud Kalinge.
We are sorry for bringing algebra to you.
Yes, yeah, it's okay.
We are sorry. The Muslims are very sorry for algebra.
And he's the author of this beautiful book that you need to read and understand, for you to understand properly the media stereotypes of Islam and Muslims, a global perspective. It's available in local bookshops, and if you need to further information, you know where to contact us. Keep it there. This is the Weekly Matters, and I'm your host, Ahmedkadar. Till next Friday. But before I say bye, remember we are also live on our Facebook page, that is Horizon TV Kenya, Twitter at Horizon TV, myself at Ahmedkadar, without forgetting my producer Sulaiman of Tumbo on the other side. Bye.